Our next guest joining us on today's Big Blend Radio Happy Hour show is Brandon Hunt. He's the founder of Bourbon Charity, and this is like a super cool nonprofit. They're based out of Chandler, Arizona, and they combine charity with bourbon. And here's the hashtag, Drink for a Change. I think we can all get behind this.
I like it.
I know. He's joining us to talk about a brand new private barrel online fundraiser to generate funds for the hospitality industry. Look at what's going on with COVID-19. It has really affected hotels, restaurants, it's affecting bartenders. So he is doing this awesome fundraiser. So keep up with them on their website, bourboncharity.org. So welcome, Brandon. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. How are you guys doing?
Oh, we're doing good. It's happy hour. And listen, you turned out to be our pop-up guest. We're like, hey, this is launching today. Let's get them on happy hour because, now we get to have 2 happy hours. Is that okay?
Perfect. Happy hours, 2 is better than 1.
I know. Drink for a change. Hashtag that. So tell us a little bit about, I never thought we'd be interviewing someone who has a bourbon charity, but tell us a little bit about the start of Bourbon Charity.
Yeah, well, thank you. Bourbon Charity really started about a year ago. We're 1 year in. But the story really begins a couple of years before that. My old man was diagnosed with prostate cancer at the age of 60, and what was supposed to be a routine surgery just to remove his prostate, you're good as new, turned out to be a complete nightmare. Like, he spent the next 30 days in the hospital. And luckily, he pulled through. He was strong. He's doing well today. But it really kind of impacted me. And my first real touch of cancer directly, touched me. And really at the same time that my dad was going through this, a high school friend's daughter got diagnosed with neurofibromatosis, which means she had tumors growing on her spine and on her leg. And it's just like 2 bad things happen at once. And, I just got inspired by what this little girl and her family decided to do. They decided to take her diagnosis and raise awareness with it and raise money with it. And I'm like, you know what? I'm on board for this. I'm going to write a check. They did their 5K run walk. I sponsored it. But to me, it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel like I was doing enough. So I was at my office one day, and I have a lot of bourbon. I love bourbon. It's so rich in history, and it tastes so good.
Yeah.
So I was like, I wonder what I could do with all this bourbon, And I was like, I wonder if I did a online raffle with it. I wonder how much money I could really raise, and if it really if there was other people out there that were willing to give money for this bourbon. So in less than 90 days last year, right around Father's Day, was able to raise $75,000 with 25 bottles of bourbon.
Wow.
Which was like, okay, you might be onto something here.
Dude,
so
you think? Drink for a change, everybody. This is great.
I was like, this is great. So, and I had never really been into social media prior to that. My wife had tagged me in the kids' photos and this and that. And it really started this Instagram account and really just started posting about this bourbon and really talking about my story, about my dad with prostate cancer and this little girl with tumors growing on her and how I was doing this, and really just, telling people and being honest about, like, my experience and why I'm doing this. And people, it resonated very well with people, and they decided to give. And I'm like, you know what? I wonder if there's something to do here with this. If it's not just limited to one fundraiser, maybe we can do multiple fundraisers, and maybe we can do impact multiple charities. And it just kind of has grown over the past year, and we've donated over $250,000 to 16 different charities. And then we're just kind of taking that to the next level here with the COVID-19 in the hospitality industry.
I love that. I love that you're helping. I was saying this at the very beginning of the show, that you're helping people and the planet through what you're doing. I've seen that you have done things for water. It's people's health. I mean, all these different organizations, and it's something to do it through that's fun. I mean, bourbon is fun. So, and the history is really cool. Nancy and I, we travel full-time on our Love Your Parks tour, documenting parks across the country, all kinds of parks, national parks, state parks, historic parks, community parks, and we have had bourbon in some of them, just don't tell anyone. And but last year we finally, after doing so many interviews with our friends out in Kentucky, got to Kentucky. And we actually didn't even get to really go inside the distilleries because we had to do a turnaround. But I know it's crazy. But, we got out there. But we've actually interviewed Nicholas. Oh, my gosh, his last name just escapes me. But he does bourbon archaeology. And look at bourbonarchaeology.com. Okay. But he goes around and digs up old distilleries and finds out all the, it's
that's really cool.
I know when you're talking about the history of it. So where did the bourbon thing start for you? When you mentioned history, I was like, yeah, because this is part of like America's, we've got jazz, but we have bourbon too.
Yeah, I'm from Kentuckiana growing up, so Kentuckiana is like southern Indiana and northern Kentucky, so bourbon's kind of in your blood when you grow up there. You're around it, just like racehorses and basketball, so I kind of grew up with it, and when I'd come home from college, my brother and my dad and I would always enjoy some nice bourbon, and so as I progressed in my career out in Arizona, I started, getting a kind of a finer taste for, more expensive bourbon and different bourbons, and started really collecting it. And so it just kind of snowballed, and I'm like, you know what, if I'm into this, there's got to be a lot of other people that are into it. And I think it resonates very well with people, the fact that, hey, this is a charity. We're not focused on just one cause, as you kind of mentioned. We're focused on a lot of different causes, local, international, cancer, hunger, a lot of different causes. And, it's something they can pull up their Instagram feed and be like, oh, look at that bourbon. That's interesting. Or look at that story that he's talking about this bourbon. It's not, hey, look at this kid that has this disease or this going wrong in the world. It's kind of uplifting and positive spin on things.
I like that. I like that a lot. I mean, it's I think that when you're passionate about something, where you can do good, you should, and it's just part of that whole puzzle of life. And once you get that, you have a better life, because whenever you're doing something, when you're doing something good, you're doing it for yourself at the end of the day too, because you do get joy out of it, and you're going to get joy out of bourbon as well. But I want to get into this. So you do every Father's Day, right? You do a drawing, and I know that's coming up, Father's Day, June 21st. But you announced today this special online fundraiser, really helping the hospitality industry. And I know a lot of bartenders as well, and restaurateurs that have really,
suffering.
A lot of restaurants have just closed. That's it. We're done. So I think what you're doing is really cool. It's helping like the James Beard Foundation, the United States, Bartenders Guild. So tell us how everyone can help you.
Yeah, so this opportunity came where this restaurant, due to, obviously the economic slowdown, they had committed to buying a lot of different barrels of whiskey, and some of it they just economically could not afford anymore. So when we kind of got wind of that, we were like, you know what, how about we try to save this restaurant from what they were obligated to and try to turn it into something good, turn this orphan barrel of whiskey into a charity barrel of whiskey. So we worked really hard with the distributors and 5 different retail partners, 3 restaurants and 2 liquor stores in the state of Arizona, and Phoenix, Scottsdale, and Tucson, to see if we could get the cost down where we could donate enough money for all these bottles of alcohol to go to the hospitality industry, like you mentioned, the Bartenders Guild and James Beard Foundation. So we were able to work with them, coordinate with them to get $15 of every bottle sold going to those charities. So it was a great coordination, a lot of work within the community to make it happen. And we just launched today, and I got word at 1 o'clock, less than 4 hours after we launched, that 50% of the bottles had already sold out.
Wow.
Dang. Okay.
Man.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Right?
Yeah.
So this is crazy. And then you have another, so this is the one that started today. And I love that this is all connected with Arizona too. And we used to live in Tucson. That's our home base. We love Tucson. And so the other part too is you've got a second one. So you have one that's with Barrel Craft Spirits out of Tennessee. Now I want to talk about whiskey versus bourbon. We had this lesson in Arkansas, believe it or not, but a very good distillery. Have you had Rocktown Distillery bourbon yet?
I have not. No,
Oh.
I'm going to have to look into them.
Yeah, they're this awesome distillery in Little Rock, and they were the very first distillery to open after Prohibition.
Yeah.
And they had to go through literal hell to do this. They got open, and everything is local to Arkansas. And right now they're doing hand sanitizer. But they were really awesome. We went into their distillery, and, of course, we had an interview where I tasted I think it was their vodka or gin. Nancy, you had the rum because they also do that.
Yes,
and
it was awesome.
It was fantastic, except for apparently I couldn't talk very well.
I know. It was like, ooh.
But it was really, they're good. And so I just want to give them a shout-out because we had a good time there. But
yeah, we did.
He explained the lesson of bourbon versus whiskey, and I can't remember it.
I know.
I was enjoying it too much. So I don't know, but because you're talking about bourbon and whiskey, but they are related, right?
Sure.
Okay.
They are. So all bourbon is whiskey, but not all whiskey is bourbon. It's usually kind of the distinguisher there. So bourbon has to go through an extra set of criteria to be classified as bourbon. It has to have a certain mash bill ratio. It has to be distilled in the United States. It has to be taken out of the barrel at a certain proof. So there's more stringent requirements to be a bourbon versus has to be aged 2 years at a minimum. So there's these requirements that a distillery has to meet to be able to call it a bourbon versus a whiskey.
Oh, see, okay.
So then what about rye whiskey?
No, see, and what about
rye
Canadian?
whiskey? Yeah.
Rye
Canadian,
whiskey,
yeah,
rye
that's
whiskey.
Don't let me down.
So that would not be distilled in the United States, so that would not count. Rye whiskey has 51% rye versus the wheat ratio, so it has too much rye to be considered a bourbon. So that's why it's a rye whiskey and not a bourbon.
Okay, so now
that's interesting.
So now that you've got for your May 15th one, right, your fundraiser, it's a Barrel Craft Spirits from Tennessee. Now, do you don't mind, crossing borders from Kentucky into Tennessee with your bourbon and whiskey?
Oh, no. There's some great whiskey, bourbon being made from Tennessee, Indiana. I mean, nowadays these craft distillers, we kind of look at it as like, this is kind of like craft beer 2.0. This is like craft beer was really hot about 10 years ago. Craft distillery is now kind of the in thing. And so you'll even see a lot of breweries now turning into doing craft distilling now. And a lot of their product is really young. That's what's so, one of the things I love about bourbon and whiskey. Like, you can't rush it. Like, you can't improve the scientific process of aging. It has to sit in the barrel for a number of years to be good, right? So a lot of these distilleries, they're waiting, a minimum of before they can even release to be really decent, 2-3 years minimum. The real good stuff is, 8 to 12 years aged. So there's a long process where you're not making any revenue. So it's definitely a patient business game. If you're willing to play that game, it can definitely pay off. But a lot of these craft distilleries and what they do, which is kind of unique, they'll source a lot of this bourbon from big suppliers. One of them is MGP out of Indiana. And so they'll buy all these barrels, they'll label it as their own, sourced from MGP out of Indiana with their brand and logo on it until their product is of age, and then they'll start selling their product. So they're making revenue in the interim until their, bourbon's aged to, 3 or 4 years.
Wow, this is amazing.
I want to test it.
I know. But this is what's really nice. It's an art. It really is an art. It's a craft form. That's craft distilling, craft brewery. It is an art, just like winemaking. With these, you've got these fundraisers, but you also have the bourbonhood.org. And this is interesting because this is a way that people can be part of a club, like how there's wine clubs, right? So this is kind of like that in a way to help charity-wise.
Yeah, it's kind of when I started the charity, I was really inspired by Scott Harrison, who started Charity Water. His model was 100% of public donations goes to building the water projects in Africa. I'm like, that's amazing. I know if I give $1, they're giving $1 to building that well. And I'm like, you know what? That's my goal at Bourbon Charity. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I'm going to find people that believe in this cause enough to know that they're giving to the overhead and operating costs of the charity. And so every time we do a public fundraiser, we can commit 100% of those funds to those charities that we support. So that's what Bourbon Hood is. That is our supporters that know that, hey, it costs money to run a business. It costs money to source all these highly allocated, bourbons and whiskeys that everyone wants to win in our fundraisers. And they are committed to seeing us accomplish that mission. So that's Bourbon Hood.
That's awesome. And also just even putting a nonprofit together, I give you kudos to that because that's a pain in the butt to try and make it all happen. It's paperwork. And
it is. It's a lot of paperwork, especially when you're doing it around booze. It's there's a lot of extra precautions and steps and lawyers and the licensing, and so it's been a lot of work, but as you kind of mentioned earlier, like that's kind of my reward. Like I love trying to figure it out. I get a lot of thrill out of doing this and giving back. So, I'm receiving a lot from this charity in return for my hard work, and so it's very rewarding to see it come to fruition and see the impact that we're making for a lot of charities.
Yeah, this is very, very cool. So so you've got the one going on right now. So everybody, if you go to bourboncharity.org, everything's there. So Rossville Union straight rye whiskey, that's what's going on now. But then you said half of it's gone already.
Half of it's gone, yeah. That happened this morning.
Okay, then so what happens when it's gone? Is it just, that's it?
When it's gone, it's gone.
Damn.
That's just like the artwork.
Listen,
Once you taste something, you're not going to get that same taste profile again. It's gone.
That's the problem with wine drinking and bourbon, like all of it.
Not a problem. It's continuing research. The
way
I see it.
But because it's like it's like a really good meal. You've had it and you never really replicate it. It's like you can't replicate the mole. Once it's there, that's it.
But it's really fun to keep trying.
I know it is really fun to keep trying, but it's like it's it's just like it's like wah, it's gone. Like that case is gone. It's wah, and that's why you've got to really savor each sip. So May 15th is the Barrel Craft Spirits Tennessee Whiskey. So this is aged 14 years. So the longer,
wow.
I mean, can it overage? Can we overage whiskey? Yeah,
really?
Like wine, because
sure.
wine gets weird too. We've seen liqueurs get
isn't
weird.
That about temperature?
Or just
it's a lot about temperature. They have these people are really smart, and they test and they test and they try, and if it gets to where it's tasting like you're licking a tree, they know it's too oaked and like it needs to come out. Like there's a lot of science that goes into this nowadays, and a lot of great palates that go into to trying it as it ages and just making sure that it is perfect when it comes out of that barrel.
So everybody wants the oak barrel, but then you say it gets too oaked. So does that mean in some way it's now kind of disintegrating the oak barrel and taking too much taste from the oak?
It's not it'll taste more oaky as it ages, but again, you got to think every year that bourbon or whiskey sits in a barrel, it loses approximately like 3 to 5% of its volume based off evaporation.
Yeah.
So you might start out with a full barrel, and if you get down to 15 years, you're at half a barrel. So instead of getting, let's say, like with the Rossville, which is a 7-year, we got 198 bottles out of that barrel. With this 14-year barrel whiskey, we're going to get 90, maybe like 98, I think, bottles out of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's a big difference in the output that you lose, obviously, over the years of aging.
Now, what happens for Father's Day? You've got this. You're going to do a drawing. Who like everybody to go to bourboncharity.org for this too, and also on Facebook, Bourbon Charity, Instagram, also on Twitter. But with what happens Father's Day? Where does the proceeds from that go to? Who gets that?
Yeah, so our Father's Day is our flagship fundraiser that kicked things off 1 year ago. And so we have 5 different charities that we're supporting with the fundraiser. And that is Fisher House Foundation, which is the military, Charity Water International Water Projects over in Africa, Dare to Care Food Bank, which is based out of Louisville, Prostate Cancer Foundation, obviously cancer research, my dad there that I touched on, and Children's Tumor Foundation with the little girl that helped me get this started in the first place.
Wow. This is amazing what you've done. What do you do, aside from the charity? Like, what's your other career other than raising money through bourbon?
Yeah, I'm a real estate investor. Actually, I moved out to Arizona after college, and right at the peak of the market in 2005, and watched the market crash, and had one great year, and then just figured out that, hey, there's an opportunity to invest in fixing and flipping properties and rehabbing and bringing these homes back to life, and really created a contracting company and an investment company, a hard money lending company, and just a bunch of different businesses centered around real estate, and got burned out of that, and that's why now it's great to have another passion to really give my all to.
And it's part of your roots, in Kentucky. You guys apparently have the best water for making bourbon too. From what we went
that's
to,
right, that limestone.
Yeah, that limestone. Well,
the limestone.
We went and we had,
we travel wine.
Listen, when you travel full time, things sometimes turn us around, and it was just a family friend thing, like a little emergency thing we had to turn around for. But we were there in Springfield, and man, it's so beautiful out there, and we're like in the heart of bourbon country. We went to Bardstown, and we went to Jim Beam, but it was raining. We said hi, and we kept driving around just trying to get the lay of the land, thinking we were going to be there for like 10 days, 2 weeks, and things turned around for us. But that, it's I want to go back, and we're heading east again. So like, hello Kentucky, we're coming back, and Tennessee, we got to spend time there. We're going to be, and then there's moonshine. So what happens? Will you ever get into moonshine? Because that's a relative.
I don't know. Moonshine is a little different. I'd never say never. You never know.
Hey,
I think it's cool.
I know.
I don't. There's just that part of me that if you can get away with it, I think your campaign is really, really smart, and I love the Bourbon Hood, and I love that little logo of Robin Hood, but he's a Bourbon Hood. I love that because that's so smart. I think the whole thing is really smart, and that it's around bourbon is even better. But now it is time to play our favorite game. Now, we used to have a bell, and then the bell broke on our show, and then we realized we don't agree with last call. So that's really what it was. We threw it away. Tell us,
that's funny.
If you could spend happy hour with anyone alive or passed on, who would it be? Where would you go to spend happy hour? What would you drink, of course? And then what are you going to talk about, because we want the gossip?
Oh, goodness. I feel like this is a loaded question. Hopefully my obviously the wife is not on the board, right? Because that's obviously
you can bring whoever you want, and if you want more than one person, you are allowed to do that. You're doing good work. It's part of the Bourbon Hood code.
I definitely bring my old man, my pops, for sure. If I could have a old fashioned with my old man, that would for sure be my first choice. And where would I be? Exactly where I'm right now. Actually, I'm in Page, Arizona, on Lake Powell.
Oh,
I
no
don't
way!
know if you've traveled there.
Yeah. Are you on a houseboat?
I am not. The lake's actually shut down right now to the weekends, and then us locals can can go out there on the water. So we have a second place up here, and so we are spending as much time. And this is my place where I've always been able to shut my brain off. And just kind of taking the moments and taking the memories with I got a 9 and 6-year-old and just experience some great memories as a family. So it'd definitely be out here with my old man and the kids running around for sure, drinking an old fashioned. What would we talk about? I'm sure we just bring up old memories, and I'm sure my dad would talk about stories of him playing tricks on me or something as a kid. And giving me a hard time.
That's interesting because you'll have different versions of it for sure.
Oh yeah,
exactly.
For sure. Like we just had Easter, and I was telling my son this story that my dad and my uncle were playing a prank on me. I was at the grandparents' house, and I was about in 3rd grade or so, and my grandparents were, pretty conservative, but they had this golden egg that had $5 in it, and I was like, I'm going to find over all my cousins and my brother. I'm going to find that golden egg.
Yeah.
And my dad loves telling this story. Him and my uncle hijacked this golden egg and replaced it with some dog droppings.
Oh.
And strategically placed it where I was looking.
Oh.
And so so I was super excited to find this golden egg, and it turns out when I brought it back to my grandparents and opened it up in front of everyone, it was not the $5 I expected. So I'm sure my old man would be reminiscing about stories like that when I was a kid, and sharing it with my kid as well.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's classic.
Man, I wish I'd done that to you, Lisa.
I know. This is the coolest prank. So our friend Jerry here, she owns the Homestead Inn in 29 Palms, where we're getting ready to hit Nevada and go east. We will hit Bourbon country. But when her son turned 18 for his 18th birthday party, she comes out with this big cake, and it had yellow frosting at the top, and it was kind of greenish, but he went to cut it in front of everybody, do the big blow out the candles, and he couldn't cut the cake open. And he didn't understand what it was, like what was going on, and he's embarrassed. When you're 18 and you're trying to impress the girls and all of that. It was a sponge, and she made it out of sponges, and she was like, "Don't be a sponge. Get out of the house. Go." And then she brought out his real cake, but isn't that's classic, man? Talk about the goal. That whole. There's life lessons in that, because when you go for the golden egg, you're going to have to wade through some caca to get there. And at the end of the day, we need good bourbon to get through it.
You said caca.
I did say caca. It's my duty. Anyway. You really are in a professional radio show, I promise, but it's happy hour. Anything could happen. But, Brendan, thank you for joining us, and thank you for what you're doing. I'm so glad we could have a pop-up guest today. This is brilliant. Everyone, again, go to bourboncharity.com. Also, go to .org. .org, it's a nonprofit, bourboncharity.org, or go to bourbonhood.org. I love that. I want to live in Bourbon Hood. Can't you do that as a real estate investor? We want Bourbon Hood.
But it would make a great Monopoly game.
I know. And then you could have, you see, that's the next
thing. It could be Monopoly.
Can't we have Bourbonopoly as a game?
Ooh, that would be fun, wouldn't it?
You're
giving me ideas. Don't get me started on something here.
Well,
now you got my head spinning.
Instead of going to jail, you get sent to a bar.
There's a company that makes Monopoly games, like out of themes, like out of towns, but you could have Bourbon Hood. And we could go from Tennessee to Kentucky.
Here.
That'd be
I've
so
seen
cool.
Lake Powell Monopoly here at Walmart. So, I've seen that. Interesting.
But
I think you're onto something here.
Bourbon Hood Monopoly would be Bourbonopoly.
Yeah.
It would be so much
Bourbonopoly.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I'll take your barrel craft for your raw still.
I mean, so then you'd want to like go to jail.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
It sounds like a win-win. It sounds like even if you don't win the game, you're still winning.
Exactly.
And you must drink bourbon while you play.
When you get a chance card, it says take 3 shots or not.
Now, listen. Okay, before you go, the whole bourbon thing, do you have to smoke a cigar when you drink bourbon? Does it change things? Do you do that?
No. I don't smoke cigars personally. Like I know people do, and they say it kind of opens up your taste buds a little bit. It's just not my thing. But to each their own, I guess. But no, you don't. I
don't understand because doesn't taste like smoking deaden your tongue?
Yeah,
your taste buds.
It's not my
thing. And it's not good. Look at it's not healthy. So,
Who cares as long as they drink the bourbon?
Yeah, drink the bourbon. Raise some money for the nonprofit.
Enjoy the history.
Yeah. Yeah, enjoy the
drink
history.
For a change.
You got to check out Bourbon Archaeology. I'm telling you, it's a hoot.
Cool. I'm really stuck on Bourbonopoly. I
know. She wants to play now. Okay. So there it is, Brandon. Thanks for joining us on that.
I want to design it.
Yeah. Everyone, bourboncharity.com is the web .org. I keep saying .com, but here it is. bourboncharity.org is the website. Please get involved there. Also on social media, Facebook, Instagram is a place to go. The best places, right? Those two websites, social media sites.
Yeah.
Facebook and Instagram.
Absolutely, social media for sure.
Okay, and we want to thank the International Food, Wine, Travel Writers Association for sponsoring today's show. You can go to ifwtwa.org. Awesome organization. Hey, distilleries are part of it. Wineries are part of it. Destinations, travel writers, everyone's part of it. Check it out. And we want to thank everyone for joining us on today's show. You can keep up with us at bigblendradio.com. And we're going to close with some more music from Shelley King.
Cool.
Her latest album is out now. She'll be featured in our upcoming issue of Big Blend Radio and TV magazine coming out on Monday. And this is from her new album, Kick Up Your Heels. And we thought we had to play this one shot at a time. So this goes with Bourbonopoly. I can't even say it. So here it is, one shot at a time. Thank you so much, Brandon.
Thank you.
Recently, how much is in a bottle of Tennessee? I don't know, but I'm willing to find out. One shot at a time, that's right, one shot at a time. Everybody one shot at a time. Bartender, keep them coming till I'm out of my mind. One shot at a time. There's a lot of reasons why I should not, but a whole lot more why I should. Got some catching up with some friends of mine. One shot at a time, that's right, one shot at a time. Drink it with me, one shot at a time. Bartender, keep them coming till I'm out of my mind. One shot at a time, let's go. I'm at my best, I done drank them troubles off my chest. Give me straight up Jack, a Rome moonshine, one shot at a time. That's right, one shot at a time. Everybody one shot at a time. Bartender, keep them coming till I'm out of my mind. One shot at a time. All right now. Helps them play. Just a little party on a Saturday night. We'll keep it rocking till the morning light. Sarah Brown. Kicking in, ain't no reason we can't be friends. I'm feeling good and you're looking fine. One shot at a time, that's right, one shot at a time. Drink it with me, one shot at a time. Bartender, keep them coming till I'm out of my mind. One shot at a time, that's right.